We have Hello Culture Matters podcast. Hello Culture Matters podcast. I apologize because we've discovered much of the best stuff happens before we hit record. Before I introduce the show and my great co-host, I have a quote just for this podcast, and we'll catch you up on some of the themes you missed in the space between the notes. Here's a quote. Nothing captures human interest more than human tragedy. Dan Brown. Today I'm joined by Demetri, Stakias, and we are here to discuss numerous topics, among an excerpt from 30 Days of Thought, cultural alignment. And I found Beyond Good and Evil. He was in the master bedroom. I was thinking it was downstairs on the first floor and one bookshelf, and no, it was not. It hit me while I was flying to get the mouthwash that was ordered at the front door. Oh my gosh, that's where Beyond Good and Evil is. I look for 10 minutes downstairs over every nook and cranny. Boom, flash. Joined by Demetri. Thanks for joining me. And I guess we're going to talk about angels and demons inspired the quote. I want to rewatch and read for the first time that book series. There's an app passage from Beyond Good and Evil I definitely want to share. And what exactly did we miss? I was there, but was I before we hit record fully? Um,
I think you mentioned. I think you started touching the topic. Is that you want to pursue the effort of saving demonically influenced people, and I think some people question if these people are redeemable. But if you go actually into the Bible and the faith and early Christians, even Satan is redeemable, but he has an ego. And I've heard stories of monks talk to demons, and they just try to say, "Hey, can you ask for prayer?" And I said, "Well, which prayer do you want me to say?" And they're like, "All right, say the Jesus prayer with me." And that simple Jesus prayer that monks throughout the world say on repeat is, "Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner." So they can go so far as to say, "Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God." So they can acknowledge that Jesus is the Son of God, but to actually ask for mercy, there's something within them that forces them not to. So then they cannot have redemption because there's no there's no tears of repentance. There's no sorrow or remorse for the wrongdoing. And I feel like sometimes in our current injustice system, it rewards criminal behavior because there is no penalty for the 10th attempt, the 20th attempt at, uh, you know, robbery with no redemption path. Where in the past, people would lose their hands. There'd be the eye for an eye and the tooth for a tooth, and anyone who walked around with one hand was not to be trusted, even if they were perfect the rest of their lives.
does the consequence open up a path for self reflection, reintegration?
I think it's reintegration and then kind of a like, hey, you better behave. When I went to visit China years ago in 2016, and I said, okay, to myself, you're going to behave. Not, I mean, I behave anyway, but you're going to mind your opinions. You're going to mind your thoughts.
Wow.
You're going to mind your politics because you want to get home. And so the need to be right, which a lot of us carry as a chip, in other countries, you better let it go in the instance of personal safety. And it's not about standing for or against your beliefs. I mean, you're still going to do what's right, but why? What's the point of making a point and then dying alone in a prison cell? So those angels and demons in those countries, you can't go to church. You're going to get on a list. In these communist countries, they track people who are believers of faith because they don't worship the state. They're actually dangerous because they think for themselves.
That's a good point.
You know, that's why the Russians destroyed churches. I mean, now they're rebuilding them, but the West is still demonizing Russia, right? They're still the boogeyman with a $1.5 trillion economy versus our 30. Again, who's worse, right?
Yeah.
We're taught from a mirror, from a dirty lens.
What if instead of higher, slow, fire, fast, it's higher. I wanted to say originally without more thought, higher, slow, to emphasize this point, fire honestly. But then I thought even the slow piece is under, it's like higher with intention, let let go directly, let go. Yeah, obviously, I have to think for 10 hours to try to get something that simple. But
It's to release a weight that's inside you, right? To have that burden, that sin, right? And the definition of sin is turning away from God. And those commandments, those simple 10 commandments that we're given, we violate them constantly, whether it be knowingly or unknowingly. And sometimes it takes us a whole lifetime to wake up to that. And so that's why, when I went to connect with Dr. Peterson, my whole mission there was to give him one book and help him embrace the faith before it's too late. And it was a translation of a Russian classic, The Soul After Death,
wow,
which is a full accountability of all the good and wrong that we've done. And that climb up the divine ladder, those demons pull you down. It's almost like toll booths. And it's such a dark concept. It's not shared in our happy go lucky Joel Osteen prosperity gospel because it's inconvenient to speak darkness.
you gave me a book. What's
Hmm.
it about?
Which one? The recent one?
Mm-hmm. What?
Okay,
Yeah.
so in this search and chase for more, it's not that we lose our sense of self, but we lose that higher awareness to that connection to the divinity. Um, because a lot of people pursue stuff, and stuff is great. We need stuff, and stuff leverages and multiplies. But I feel the best gifts of this world are the ones that are achieved through suffering, suffering for noble causes. Like what the Lord did, right? When they say, "What would Jesus do?" Jesus wouldn't worry about his figures. He'd worry about his disciples and his apostles and the message that they're sharing out there. So,
Hmm.
like when you share a message, when you're sharing something good, um, as you said earlier off camera, you don't want to be teaching the wrong people because those are
No,
the improper disciples of your work, and they'll water down your work, even though they paid you the fee to earn the right to learn something. They're bastardizing it. They're twisting your words to their benefit and to your detriment. So it's like we have to have that discernment with who we work with, who we surround ourselves with. And
this is where I think if I don't speak, if I don't write, if I don't do the things, then I'm the hypocrite. I'm creating a space for people to share. I'm creating a space for that. But then I think, am I well, okay? Socrates never wrote anything down, but I'm not Socrates. I'm me. Right. So, but so this is what my call. I have to shine. Jenna said this the other day. You maybe yesterday. You need to shine. You're a light. You. She said, I saw you so happy at the collaborative on September 3rd. It like shook her. She keeps saying, "You need to be around people. You need to be around people." Yeah.
there's a matter I think that you can further investigate, and I would call it like social dopamine, right? But beyond dopamine, it's true serotonin. So we think that by initially meeting somebody, there's some excitement, But the serotonin is kind of like the idea of you reflecting on an event that happened over 2 months ago as if it happened yesterday. Meaning that's how fresh it is. The feeling, the reverberation that rock that dropped in your pond woke you up, stirred up the swamp water that was inside you, and now it's like, wait, we're circulating again because you're in the energy of good people, and they're challenging you. They're moving you around with questions and queries and theories that wake up, something that was stuck in the bottom of your pond, and now it's circulating again. Now you're in flow. Now you're in more ease. And so now maybe you're inspired to do more of these events, right? In your hometown and other hometowns, and inspire others to connect with each other.
And our idol can't be capital, it has to be collaboration.
Yeah, yeah. That's our
Oh,
currency. Yes.
collaboration is the seventh core value. Now, it was the C in Culture Matters in the back of 30 Days of Thought was and still is collaboration. Give first, intend to help, and get started today. From a firm standpoint, preparation, urgency, curiosity, consistency, focus, education, and collaboration are the core values of our consulting firm. Like I try to, I aspire to model those in the work, and then I envision training around, what does that even mean within the context of professional services? But the community, the idol can't be capital. When a community's when the idol of a community is capital, it ceases to be a community. It
Then
ceases to communicate.
they're worshiping the golden calf.
What is this?
Meaning in the time of Moses, right? And Moses is dropping the Ten Commandments on people, and they're waiting, and then one of their breakaway people is like, "Why don't we just worship this golden calf?" Meaning, idolatry, right? If we worship this thing of gold and glistens and it's royal, then we don't have to worry about the rules of God and obey and humbling ourselves behind some creator who just made us to be their plaything. Again, you can start segmenting things into tiny like materialistic quadrants, or you look at things from the hive mindset. So you're building a hive where the abundance is in the connections, not in the net worth and the credit score of each person who's in the room.
It's just not who I am at my core. Don't care. And the salon we were talking about, right? The idea, and am I even using the right terminology? I hear about salon, like that's an old reference of some type of melting pot of. I have to look it up in my knowledge base. Like, is that what was the salon? I was like, what? Oh, let me open this up. Oh,
I mean, if we can change ideas, like in Greece, you have they call them platias, like the center square, where people gather and they have their coffee and they'll have their talks. Then people had Roman baths, right, where people could have thoughts. Now everything is behind a commerce wall. So they don't, some or I noticed gyms. Sometimes the gym sauna is a place to congregate. That's the new bar. It's people of all backgrounds, and if somebody has an interesting thing to say, more or less you're not interfering if you just were to bring up a query, a conversation, a funny attachment. You could make a friend, or you could just have a few enjoyable minutes while not
what was that called?
the word for the town square or
Yeah.
platia, Platea. That's the Greek word we use, but meaning this idea of a center square, a meeting place that anyone could kind of go to, and you either meet with your friends or you make new friends, and there's an openness where we have that in ways, but there's a lot of walls that we have to break through. And here in Philly, you got to break through the walls of sarcasm, of they must want something if they're going to try to be hello and smile, or what's wrong with you. Right? There's a lot of what's wrong with you. Now, mind you, yesterday I was texting my mom today. She says, Hey, yesterday I went to New York and I tried to reach Gary Vaynerchuk, and she's like, "Wait, you walked through New York City dressed up as an elf and nobody bothered you?" I said, "Exactly." Like there, that's normal. It's okay. I said in Philly, I think they would bother you, but in New York, they're okay with it. So,
I just so you said platia?
but yeah.
I see. In Greek means broad place. The
Mhm.
public square or marketplace, essentially the center of civic life, closely related to the agora, public marketplace, hub of philosophical, political, cultural exchange. It was a physical or symbolic space of the people where democracy was lived, not theorized. Public reasoning or logos, civic participation, formation of collect. So this laid the foundation of Western culture, essentially, you're saying.
It did. It was our town square. I mean, if you look up where Homer taught as a blind poet on the island of Chios, it's just a humble rock. It wasn't some academic university with a high tuition.
The knowledge base right now is integrating Salon. This is unbelievable. I have to do a screen share I can't, there's some personal stuff on the side, so I shouldn't for the
No,
business. But
just
I'll read
close it
it.
up
So you
and
listen to this. It says the salon, and then it shows side by sides of the salon, 17th to 19th century France, Europe. It was called a salon. A salon was an intellectual gathering, often hosted in a private home, typically typically by a woman, well,
yeah.
known as a salonière, where writers, philosophers, artists, politicians, and thinkers met to exchange ideas. Purpose: to refine taste and thought through conversation, to influence politics, literature, art, and society, to democratize access to intellectual life, not through hierarchy, but dialogue. Um, Example: Gertrude Stein's 20th century Salon in Paris carried that tradition into modernism. Picasso, Hemingway, you mentioned him,
Mhm.
Fitzgerald. So it says here, modern parallel. The culture collaborative echoes the salon, a structured forum for dialogue, refinement, and social evolution through conversation. And then it says the parallel between the platea and the culture collaborative as the modern agora, design space for people to engage in meaningful dialogue, think publicly, and refine shared culture. Now it says it's showing the agora platea, next to each other, and then under that European salon, and then under that 30 days of thought. And it's saying place, public square is the platea, private home is the salon, personal mind is T dot, 30 days of thought. Then it says purpose. Next to the platea, civic dialogue, philosophy, politics, purpose of salon, intellectual exchange, art refinement, purpose of 30 days of thought, inner reflection, philosophical inquiry. Then it says modern equivalent. The modern equivalent of the agora or platea is the cultural roundtables, the public forum. So, right, the round table. Um, I envision like the affiliate, like real affiliates, in robes and like white, with the Greek, wearing, you got to wear the hat. It's funny. Maybe what was missing from Arte, the modernistic, unless I would like to get your
The myth,
analysis on that.
the
Let me,
myth,
sorry,
the
I'm
myth
jumping
of
around my thoughts.
the,
European Salon, it says the modern equivalent is the culture collaborative. And 30 Days of Thought, the modern equivalent, individual precursor to the collaboration. So that, yeah, 30 Days of Thought is that individual journey. We've foreshadowed the collaborative by getting together on on the podcast and having open dialogue around 30 Days of Thought. It always ends up being about things and nothing to do with the book. Get everyone together in Philly in May and September as the collaborative. That's foreshadowing the salon, but your Agora Platea reference has not been activated yet. And I think the first one's going to be in Naples. And so yeah, go. Well, you're gonna. I went the Arte thing. They didn't have. I don't think they went that deep. It was more
Their
surface
their
level.
their commitment to excellence was to further their own figures. And I'm not saying that in a condescending way, but when you're truly not espousing the Greek values nor visit these countries, as opposed to just literally culturally appropriating them, which a lot of people do.
Maybe not on purpose, out
Oh,
of an idealized goal, an idealized pride, like I want to be this. Kind of like how companies say, we are of service. And then they're like, why the hell are you reading the customer review? The customers don't even know what they're talking about.
yeah, they don't even know what you stand for. They're like, yeah, we stand for this. And then, like, that's a beautiful commercial. Then you walk into Avis the next day and you're like, well, clearly they could care less if they showed up or not.
Hmm.
So this platia is not just your market, it's a marketplace too. It's where vendors bring their best stuff. When my grandfather started, he would wash potatoes from Dad would tell me from 12 to 3 in the morning. So when he goes to the market at 5, he sells out first. Right? When you're a small mom and pop farmer and your marketplace is literally the farm market, you're competing against others selling perishable items. And at the end of the day, or the next end of the next day, your items aren't worth much, if anything. So you have
Wow.
to shine, and not just with your products, but with your personality, with your smile. This is salesmanship, but also charisma, because you're
Hmm.
you're selling commodities, right?
So like the way Churchill said, we build our houses and then they build us. Did the agriculture that do you think then that those perishable items it had a and their half-life had an indirect influence of the core values of the human beings?
Yes, yes. I mean, and knowing that you can't really have an ego. You can't say you have the best of anything if you're not prepared. You can't say you
Wow.
have great potatoes if they're covered in dirt
Wow.
before they came out of there, right? Do that little meet somebody halfway. You're not going to make their French fries, but you can give them the best base ingredients to make the best dinner. And if you spin things up nicely, if you know what people want, and you deliver things consistently, now you have a business. And again, it doesn't have to scale to all these figures, but just enough to sustain and raise your families, which is more than enough in small communities, villages, and islands. That's a concept lost here, but maybe times will humble us here, where a lot of people are going to lose their careers, and have to find new ways to provide. May have to downsize and move if you can't afford your home anymore. You're going to have to let go, or lose it, right? And if you refuse to let go, you're going to just lose things. And a lot of times, loss comes with pain, but loss comes with new opportunities, and all how you see it. Having had lost a lot in life, I'm not saying that I can't stand to lose more, but you're more careful and cautious about your next step, even if you're bold in your courage. So, I embrace new changes, but one thing I would caution everybody with as they get older is be wary of the decisions you make. I think it was Warren Buffett who said it takes 20 years or more to develop a reputation, only a moment to destroy it. So, there's people who try to climb their way to heaven and then make one mistake, or somebody leads a church congregation and then goes to bed with one of their members. It doesn't matter what they did their whole career. They could have done a million great things. They did one really horrible thing, and that's all they're remembered for. So if you care about legacy, not just here but in the next world, you'll want to have more angels on your side than demons, right? The demons will tell you it's okay to sleep in. It's okay to fall to distraction. It's okay to not pursue your best you. Where the angel says, I see better in you. I see the full light. Let go of that darkness. Embrace it as part of who you are, but don't let it consume you. And so I've lost a lot of time letting the darkness consume me. When you let that light that's always inside you kind of shine, and then you hold up to next to other lights like yours or others, and then you shine brightly together in unison.
Hmm.
And that's what a church is, right? The old ancient concept of a church, an ecclesia, is a community. It's a true gathering, right? It's not some building. It's not some testament to some giant donors, need to fill an ego hole. It's literally just a way to kind of. It's a home. It's
God,
a way
I
to.
was thinking about from a podcast earlier with Hector Sanchez. I wrote it down. God is the, so yeah, I don't know if it was God is, I don't think it was God. If it was God is in the mirror, can I see him? No, God is the mirror. I can't see him. But I wrote, it was like, yeah, that's what I wrote originally. It was God is in the mirror. Can I see him? It was a note because it was a story about Hector's father saying, look in the mirror, and the mirror will tell you. Well, if I look in the mirror, I'm not seeing God. I'm seeing myself. That's the point. The accountability. So I just rewrote it. God is the mirror. I can't see him because I wrote down, you know,
He is the mirror, but think about this, and I
and
don't
I
know.
can't see him and I won't see him, but he's enabling a reflection of who I am based on what I actually do and don't do, which is the reflection.
It is, and I think there's a lot of those exercises where they challenge us to stare into our own eyes and kind of not collapse into tears. And so I think there've been times where in my own journey where it's like I don't even want to look at myself. Then it's like, okay, let's do this. You feel the pain, then you feel the hurt, then you feel the growth, and perhaps you feel love, depending on what level of compassion you have for yourself that day. But I always feel like it needs to trend up, where you forgive yourself for your mistakes, feel sorrow for a moment, but then feel compassion. But then something to reflect on. When I visited monasteries, sometimes for a whole week at a time, they don't have mirrors. I mean, even you visit the town of Florence, Arizona, where there's a large Greek monastery. Even the local McDonald's doesn't have a mirror in their bathroom because they believe that looking into the mirror is vanity, right? And if you think about narcissists, right, the original concept for what a narcissist is he drowns staring into his own reflection and trying to reach for it. So when we're trying to reach for our mirror, it's more, what can we do better in ourselves for ourselves?
It's like there's an emphasis. Yes, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. God is the mirror. And then doubt. Can I see him? And then, colon, semicolon. God is the mirror. I cannot slash it out. Will not see him, exclamation mark. No. It's like fear, you know.
There's
I
a
will
fear.
not see it. That's me trying to finish that thought. By the way, this is gonna go in my notes for 30 more days of thought. Like this is the because I made that thought from the last podcast after we talked. I had a podcast with Hector Sanchez, never been on the show yet. And he said this thing at the end. I've been doing podcasts all day. I've learned more today from this podcast, this show today, than I did for the last 3 years from the interviews that I had today. Everybody I talked to, I learned, I took one thing away at least that's game changing because my ontology is different. This is the best day I've ever had podcasting in my career.
So basically, a day with Jay is a gift to yourself.
Holy, holy. I'm
praise,
not going to add the
praise
SH.
me.
Holy. It really shows the nihilism of our culture. You add the SHI to, it's like, holy, what? It's paradox. I'm confused. Holy, holy, holy. Yeah, I've had a day with Jay. It's pretty great.
Hallelujah, right? We say
Hallelujah.
hallelujah, hallelujah, right?
Yeah, I've had a day with Jay.
Amen. Ah,
How I'm receiving the information. And I told Jen I was real proud about it, excited. She's like, "Oh, that's good. We need that." Because it hasn't just been me asking questions and listening. I've been really engaged, taking notes, just like I always do. But I've been sharing my thoughts like in the spirit of the salon, conversationally with respect, with everyone engaged. And I actually, and it's been, because I've been saying, I've been trying to figure out how to integrate all parts of my who I am, listening, speaking, all- versus just speaking or just listening. Because earlier in my career for the podcast, I never listened to anything. I just spoke. That's why I was a motivational speaker. I was so unmotivated, I spoke. I lived in a van down by the river. My name is Matt Foley. Saturday Night Live, and then I started listening with the the podcast, and then I didn't say anything.
You upgraded from a broken down van down by the river into some kind of high tech, whatever you want to call it, Mercedes Benz RV liner, a tour bus that shouts your name across the mountaintops, because the movement that you're building and bringing to people will expand their consciousness and their full being.
Demetri, what do we call the series? You're the relief, and I think you're on brand. We when I talk, you see me, we get along. I consider you a friend. Uh, that gives me relief as a as an Schopenhauer, eagles. They're like yeah, great men are like eagles. They build nests in high solitude.
So there's a
I,
great story. There's a great story about eagles and chickens that one of my friends who leads a addiction recovery center has told me. He says don't be an eagle amongst chickens. So maybe like a person like me and maybe a lot of others have had injured wings, right? And so then you're clucking amongst the chickens, doing chicken stuff, right? Acting like a chicken. Then one day an eagle comes down there, starts tearing up the chickens, and looks at a person like me and says, "Hey, what are you doing down here? You're an eagle. Stretch your wings." It's like, "No, no, no, I'm down here because I broke my wing once." He's like, "Yeah, that was a while ago. Go stretch your wings and fly again and join me up in the sky." So I think that's what we can do with each other, is to lift each other up
holy
and say, "Hey,
hallelujah.
let me remind you of your greatness. Let me remind you that you fell down and you're down here amongst the untouchables or whatever it is, and that's a horrible place to to be, but let that be a bus stop and not your final stop."
Nietzsche said this: the higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly.
Right. And they're going to want to pull you down because it's comfortable and joyous. And I actually spoke with a military psychologist this week, and he said, "What's that point?" He says, "When you look out in the field and you see chicken shit, what's that point do you see on the top of the chicken shit? What's that called?" I said, "I don't know. Tell me." He said, "It's chicken shit." He says, "You're so worried about the details of what everything is called." He says that you're ignoring like what something actually is, rather than microanalyzing it and tearing everything apart. Just kind of see things for what they are. So I think the same thing with how we are as individuals. Like I'm trying to understand someone's circumstances when somebody does wrong. How could they do this? I'm like, let me just assess you based on your actions rather than who you think how I should see you.
So this brings me back to what you said about Satan. Even Satan's redeemable, but his ego, I mean, that's kind of the paradox. I can put out my hand. You have to give me your arm back. If you're in the water, I'm not going to go in the water with you. We'll drown. Well, how do you? These are the discernment, and then this has been a plaguing question of mine for many years. Even it reminds me of Karl Popper's The Paradox of Tolerance. I think we've talked about that lightly. The
Well,
more tolerant we are to intolerance, it rises up. And this has happened in the community where I was reminded of Jonathan Haddad's mother. I think it was his mother's grandfather's on the horse, protecting the village from enemies, like protecting the culture against people that might not be in a spirit of collaboration. How do you go about doing that in a way that's not unbecoming, shameful, or
I
passive?
mean, we're called to guard the sheep. I think it was in like last week's gospel. Um, I think the Lord said to Apostle Peter's like, watch my sheep. And mind you, when we hear sheep today, we think about goats and sheeps, right? But back then, goats were seen as demonic and sheep were seen as the lambs of God. They weren't seen as soft. So protecting the sheep, meaning the people who are easily influenced, easily manipulated. You know, if somebody dresses up as that sheep in wolf's clothing, right? You know, or vice versa, um, we don't know how to see them. We don't know how to assess them because we have that inner nature that wants to love and be kind to everybody. But you know, you study people like Robert Greene and the evils of others and you know the sociopaths of history, and you say, well, there's some of that those elements in some of these motivational speakers that that you've seen, right? That you're like, wait a minute, they're able to get through the audience in the guise of a false prophet.
This is how I would analogize it because it eats our soul. The same way that so there, okay, Lord Acton, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. What does that mean? If information of a company flows down easier than it flows up, like CEO to janitor, CEO says, "This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do." You don't even say why. This is what they can say no and yes. Janitor can say yes or he's out. Like Janet, who's listening? So it's the management has to create feedback loops so the janitor's perception can be assimilated all the way up to the CEO. Well, these, structure, the nature of reality that obfuscates that communication. And that, you know, there's a what an anesthetic to that. There's a numbness that can and necessary, right? You have 7,000 people. You have to make it's like the trolley problem every day as the CEO with 500,000 employees, and there isn't a right answer for one human being to carry that suffering. And if they were Christ, they wouldn't be the CEO. They would be. So anyway, where I'm going with this is analogy wise, it's a very tough spot to be, and it lowers empathy and create and increases pride to sustain psychologically to sustain an identity. Okay, an armor. I call it the liar lid journey. Is like my thesis or whatever. Unpublished thesis. So where I'm going with this, what's dangerous about the self-help community business, you know, there's an alienation Marx outlines in Cap Das Kapital that is a real, exists. What you do about it is it. Imagine though that be like doubly or triply, because when the business is human beings idealism, like what happens to that CEO of the widget factory being alienated from self, the higher they are in the hierarchy, the information flows down faster and easier and less up high. It takes their humility, their servant leadership or whatever. What about when everyone sees you as God in their hero's arc? So I have idols, you have idols. We've met some of our idols and we haven't met others. It's hard to be an idol. It's hard to be Elvis. Why? Because who the hell are you? And so with these guru models, okay, it is way easier to have a cult than it is to have a culture. It's just like it's easier to have a company where everybody just listens to everything you say, and it's like I'm the king, and you think, oh, it'd be perfect. Why? It's in the short term, lies are more profitable. In the long term, they tend to be most costly. So that's my on the pulpit of like being a guru. That's why I decided some time ago I'm going to have friends, and not everything is going to be a transaction, because it's what I noticed was most unhealthy about the profession, the helping profession, and be advising people in self-help, like the influencers of the influencers. I noticed this phenomenon that would take place psychologically.
Um, I mean,
You
I
spent
mean,
a lot of time around
you
gurus, so.
you feel like the personal improvement field. is basically a giant red light district.
Thank you all for listening to the Culture Matters podcast. I'm asking for a review based on the first 40 minutes of the conversation. Demetri, Stakias. He got a great podcast called the Relief Podcast. Is that a pun? Is it a pun? Can I get a pun for in the back? Pun for going once.
Hey,
Oh, we have some a silent auction in the back. Someone's right there. Oh, 800 on three, 800 on three, 800 on
as,
two,
as,
800
as,
going
as,
once. And
as Sting said in the classic immortal song Roxanne, turn on the red light.
um, man, that's good. So this is I have a question for you.
Sure.
What advice would you have on how to I started asking for reviews on the show after 1040
Mm.
some odd episodes. I started asking for reviews at the end. How do you think we can get the reviews up?
I would say I would urge your audience, anyone who's ever received any type of value, if you've ever shared an episode several with a friend, do Jay this wonderful honor. You don't have to buy him anything, but the best gift you can give is your true feedback, your true reflections of how you've grown as a result of the Culture Matters podcast. Take this and boost it across your reels, knowing that you have impacted many, many people to improve their lives, improve their families' lives, and say things succinctly that they could not say in hours on their own.
That was very sweet. I appreciate that. I'm honored. I really did want to know if you had any like strategic insights.
This is your
No, but I guess
review.
that's it.
Go
You
run
led
with
by
that. Go
example. I need
promote
to
that
do that.
across media and just say, hey,
Uh,
don't listen to me. Listen to my guest. And it could be me tomorrow. It could be somebody else, or you could just
Yeah, I need help. We have
just do it.
32, and it's if I just asked guests alone, I think I'd get 100. I have to put effort into this. So I do appreciate that.
Imagine you doing this. Hi, Jay here from the Culture Matters podcast. Here's a reason why you need to leave a review for the show. And then it's just basically a compilation of different guests saying the same thing in different ways of why they need to get up, go on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere where they listen to your wonderful podcast and say, you know what? Here's me paying it forward to the next person without money. It's a little bit of effort. It'll take about 5 or 10 minutes, but give it your best and be thoughtful when you say something true and reflective about the Culture Matters podcast.
Dimitri, oh, by the way, just in closing, did you read the cultural alignment? We were supposed to talk about cultural alignment. I think we just lived it. Did you ever get?
I feel sometimes we are the embodiment of ourselves rather than saying, "Oh, did you study? Are you prepared?" I'm like, I feel like I'm ready sometimes.
Yeah, so next time we should get into the excerpt, but maybe not because that's the point of 30 days of thought. This is the point of the 30 days. It's like 6 years later, I'm starting to finally like, it's supposed to get the juices going. Is the juice worth the squeeze? And your book is your next book. Wait, yeah, your book is coming soon.
Where I'm finishing it out. I think it was one of those ideas of like being the shoemaker. Like I help other people fit their shoes while not worrying about how my
Sure.
laces were tied together.
True servant.
Right. So now it's time to go within, finish out Love Through Service, and then basically concurrently the second book, which is the more painful Hugging Thorns. Um,
Wow, I love that.
oh yeah.
Two great books.
Well, I want a religious inspiration, but more of a personal story and reflective lessons. And I think we all have them, but a lot of times we don't think that we're worthy to deliver the message. Um, so yeah, because it's our message. It's not somebody else's message. Your message is already out there. You have a new one to coming soon.
I
But
could do a forward in theory of thorning hugs.
hey,
Oh man, what did Nietzsche? It's like be careful of my cypresses, but don't mistake my cypresses for my rosebuds or something. I don't know.
and to quote Poison, every rose has its thorn. No.
say about this is why I love my knowledge base. If I don't know a quote, thorns and rose bushes. Like if I could vaguely put it in and it usually finds it. Let's see. Let's see if it works. It was um no, it didn't because my it was too it was like the prompt of what did Nietzsche say about thorns and rose bushes? And what I got back was a different quote that's still interesting, but it says some people complain that roses have thorns. I'm thankful that thorns have roses.
Mm, that makes sense.
Interesting.
From my study of growing, roses, the most fragrant roses have the thorniest thorns.
Hmm.
You,
I'm excited for. Oh yeah, I did ask you a question. Maybe you want to ruminate on it, but if we have a series. What would we? How could we? Oh, well, maybe hugging. Wait, so the next book. What are the two books?
Love through service and hugging thorns.
I like both titles.
I see them becoming movements, at least the love through service movement, meaning that how do you do true hospitality, like true unreasonable hospitality, not just some gimmick that lasts for a few months, but that true selfless giving that lives in Greek culture, Turkish
Do you
culture.
have any ideas of like the series title within this framework? What would encompass? Not now, but what would encompass the meta theme that you're.
I would call it a tale of giving.
Hmm. If others join us, what's their giving pledge, giving story, stories of.
The story is to give reflections that when Jay's an artist. I'm an artist in my own way, a budding artist. And if you want to reward people's artistry, support their work, support their businesses, and give feedback, true feedback. Again, even if it's not great, I think if it's coming from a true self as opposed to vindictiveness, if you're like, look, these episodes go long. It'd be great if they were shorter. It'd be great if you covered this, or maybe had this person as a guest. Again, any feedback that's mostly coming from a place of truth, I think is welcome. And for the most part, the people who tune in regularly to your shows love and embrace the work you do. So I think like I said, don't be quiet. Share the show.
And so what's the name? I'm writing this down.
The name of a tale of giving.
Tale of Giving, and maybe interview 5 or 6 willing takers to admit they're taking.
Oh, meaning that they only take or that they lean.
I would love to have like 5 or 6 people that, in theory, that had stories of taking.
So it would be five attorneys.
Right, that I didn't mean to laugh at our attorney, their legal friends that frequent the salon of the Culture Matters podcast, but that was genuinely funny to me at least.
I
So
mean, look, I asked my
you're
attorney who came through the same nonprofit
oh,
connection. I'm not going to name him, but I asked him, I said, what was your motivation for getting into law? He said, can I be honest with you? He says, I want honesty. He says, money. Like, it wasn't a sense of justice.
well, what does Peterson say? I'd rather take the greedy capitalist that's honest than um the deceitful altruist. So I'm just,
That's a good.
that's the compassion. Maybe this guy is
Yeah.
good. He told you the truth.
No, 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 no. I think he shared his true mirror, and then so you have to accept it for what it is, and embrace it sparingly, knowing that there's going to
Amen.
come that there's no
Amen.
altruism there at all, but it's thorns that come at a cost. Right? There's no altruism. If you're actually in need, that's not the person you're going to call.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's discernment is fair. Hopefully they are in the spirit of the agora to refer, or the platea to refer someone. I guess that's another way to determine the character is, oh, well, who do you know that has a different value structure that's still in the same medium? You both serve different purposes. Oh, I don't know anybody, but it's like, all right. Um, I'm excited. So the tales of giving,
Mm-hmm.
tales of giving. If you're listening to this podcast, subscribe to the Relief Podcast. Demetri, Stakias, and tune in to Tales of Giving. We'll see you next time on the Culture Matters Podcast. Please, please leave us a review. It's how we can reinvest in you and your experience, guests, and exposure to broaden the depth of discourse. Please leave us a review on the Culture Matters Podcast, and we will see you next time. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.